We're live on YouTube. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
I'm Vera,
I'm Adrian.
and this is Vera and Adrian Work from Home.
Yeah, we had technical difficulties last week, so it's 2 weeks since we have actually been live on
Yes,
YouTube.
we have been working the entire time, obviously.
Yeah, from home. And now, yeah, it's all good.
Amazing. Adrian, will you explain to people who are joining us for the first time what we're all about?
I will do my best. We are so with the support of the Omnibus Theatre in Clapham, we're just presenting a little 45-minute chat show. Our tagline is "It's like radio." We will be chatting this week. We'll be chatting about a book called "Don't Call Us Dead" by Danez Smith. You don't have to have read the book. We're not pretending to be experts at what we're talking about.
We're definitely not experts. I think we are experts at being ourselves.
Yeah.
That much is true.
It's entertainment is what we're offering. Would you say?
That's a bold offer. Yes, I'll stand by that. But I think that there's an amount of, I don't want to say education because that sounds so self-worthy, but like I think by
provocation, maybe,
yeah, I would like to say that because I am such an idiot, and I know that I'm an idiot, as well as being not an idiot. It's so hard to sort of claim good things about myself, but I'm me, and I hope that by being me with my stupid questions and idiocy, that other people will discover things. And yeah, that's me not being articulate.
Yeah, I think, I would probably agree with that.
But I'm not stupid, I want to say.
No,
I don't think I'm stupid. I'm just like bumbling through life as best as I can. But I would say that
you're somebody who has a lot of questions.
Yes.
I think which can be quite useful.
My phone or your phone, Adrian?
Not mine. Mystery phone.
We're professionals, right? So what we're going to do is
we should content note.
Oh yes.
For this episode, we're certainly going to talk about racism. We're going to touch on white supremacy. We're going to talk about violence. We're going to talk about death. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk maybe about bodies. There might be some strong language, not bad, but strong language. There might not be, but there might be in this episode. Anything else that you can think of?
Not in terms of content warning. I was just going to run through the episode so that people know what to expect. It's 45 minutes, so it's not too long. Have us in the background. You don't need to keep looking at our faces. We're going to check in with each other. We're going to maybe use conversational prompts.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about the thing, which is the book. And then, what you can do is at what time? 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, you can ask us questions. And you do that by typing along in the chat box, which should be to the right of the screen.
Yeah.
But you need to be logged in order to chat. And we will ignore your questions and comments from 8 o'clock. And then there is a new segment or a segment that I tried out, which was to share my favorite dad joke.
Oh, do you have a dad joke for today? We haven't discussed that.
Well, I haven't quite decided what this segment should be, but I think it should be something that the audience get to take away.
Yes. Okay.
So it'll be a little thing that will come from my heart, and it's for you guys, and it's hopefully is a nice thing because I'm nice.
Yeah. You are.
Okay. Moving on.
Would you like a conversational prompt?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is conversational prompt number 5 in my pile of conversational prompts.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe we didn't use one last time.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
I think that's right. Yeah, yeah. Have you ever visited a clairvoyant? Have you?
Yeah. Well, does a tarot reader count? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a clairvoyant is somebody who sees, oh, I don't know whether it necessarily has to be sees the future, but sees something about you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tarot readers, I think, fit into that category.
Okay. What was the rest of the question?
Oh, it's if no, would you consider it? But you.
I have, yes. I
Okay.
went. My aunt didn't read my palm. She's my Thai family, or like she's from Thailand, but she's ethnically racially Chinese. Sorry, I get the terminology right. Anyway, she apparently reads palms, but I've always refused to because I was too scared.
Oh,
But,
what did you think happened?
well, first of all, that she would somehow consciously or unconsciously tell me to do things with my life as, you know, part of my extended family,
Right.
reading my palm. And also, you know, I guess I believe I'm very gullible, basically.
Okay.
If she saw something bad or good, it would put pressure on me to live a certain way.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And sort of a tarot reader many years later was like, Vera, you're not more powerful than the universe. Because she had, so I eventually went to see a tarot card reader, and she was wonderful. She was this like blonde Californian mermaid beauty who lived in, no, she didn't live in a caravan, but she had like an old school wooden caravan.
Okay.
And she read my cards because I went there for fun to do an LA thing with a friend, and it was spot on.
Nice.
But that's terrifying because so say someone say, Adrian, you're going to be so successful, you're going to be a celebrity. And then what if like 5 years down the line it hasn't happened to you? It means you've really messed up with the universe's plan. And so she was like, no, you're not more powerful than the universe. It is happening. It's just takes its time. You might be getting in the way of yourself. Or now that you know you're going to be like successful or whatever, you might be rejecting it. But so this is a terrible story. I think I'm overexcited because we didn't have an episode last week.
I don't have the feeling that you're overexcited. I think you are excited at the right level.
I'm trying to like not trip over my words. But basically, so she was in LA, and then like a few years later, I saw a little like amazing guy in Penang, Malaysia, and he pretty much said the same thing.
So do you feel like they were reading you, or do you feel like they were reading the universe?
Both.
Okay.
And to be honest, like I think it's nice to have anyone sort of like pay you that amount of attention. It's like going to a therapist, so they don't have any vested interest. It's not like friends or family or, you know, your partner, etc. And so they just listen to you, and I think it's very important to be seen and acknowledged in the world, and that's what they give you.
Right.
I mean, she was very wrong about something else. So then I think, is she wrong about everything if she's wrong about one thing? Very hard to say. Have you seen a clairvoyant?
No, but I did have a tarot reading at, so our friend John Walter did had an exhibition called Alien Sex Club in London 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Oh gosh.
I don't remember what year that was. Anyway, as part of the exhibition, he had a character called Barbara Truvada doing a tarot readings, and different people played Barbara Truvada.
Harry.
So I saw Harry Clayton Wright, who was playing Barbara Truvada when I was there, and Harry did a tarot reading for me, and it was lovely. And I think for the same reason, that it was so nice to have somebody and Harry has a very gentle kind of attention as well, which is really charming and just very warm and relaxing. And I felt very seen. It was lovely. Yeah.
I didn't feel cool enough for Harry's.
So did you not visit Harry?
I did.
Oh, you did?
You were there, weren't you there? I made someone come with me because I want.
Probably there at the same time, weren't we?
Yes, because you were performing in the show that I wrote.
Yes, right? But I don't know if that's when because I went to the opening, and then I went back to perform in the show that you wrote.
Kino.
Well, you know, John and I go way back. I met him.
I love how you coughed. You're like, John and I.
Nothing to read into that. Let's move on to the book, shall we?
Yes, it is 7:41. 7:41. So tell us about the book that you wanted to share.
So I wanted to share Don't Call Us Dead by Danez Smith. I find it a little strange that I proposed 2 books and they've both been poetry collections.
Yes.
I think of myself as somebody who doesn't read much poetry and doesn't get on with poetry very much. But perhaps that's why these 2 books, and there are some others, but these 2 books are so exciting to me because I have enjoyed them and they've spoken to me. This is...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to interrupt you because I have to say a shout out to Oliver Hall's father and mother in Solihull, Birmingham. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, it might be bedtime soon.
Okay.
Carry on.
No problem. So Danez Smith is a poet who lives in Minneapolis in the United States, and obviously that's where that's the focus of the Black Lives Matter protests that are happening all around the world, I guess now, because of the killing of George Floyd last week. The killing of Black youth, and particularly Black male youth, is one of the big topics of this collection. And one of the things that I find interesting about it, it's so Danez Smith is a queer poet, non-binary, but AMAB, so assigned male at birth. And so maleness, masculinity is part of what they're interested in, I think. And existing in a Black male body in America at the moment. So there are 2 main themes that converge in this book. Death by, as a result of white supremacy, either from, contact with the police or contact with other white people. And then death or the threat of death because of HIV, because Black male populations are, I think still, but certainly have been inordinately affected by HIV. So those 2 things kind of interweave in the book in a really interesting way. And then alongside that, there's a celebration of queerness, a celebration of sex and sexuality, but also an acknowledgement of how difficult it is to be queer in Black spaces and to be Black in queer spaces. Those are I get that's my overview of the book.
Do you have any how did you come to read this book?
I guess because I'd heard of Danez Smith on Twitter. They're quite active on Twitter, but also quite referenced by other people.
Okay.
I don't know, I guess I don't know exactly why, but yeah, I just kept seeing their name and started to follow them on Twitter and became interested in what they were writing. Yeah.
Great.
That's why it's blurbed by Roxane Gay, who's one of my favorite writers. So yeah, that may be why I wanted to buy it. It starts with this beautiful poem. It's quite a long poem. I can't remember the title now. Called Summer Somewhere, which is a kind of, what's the word? It presents a sort of utopia where the dead Black boys go. And that's where the title of the collection comes from. I just want to read you a little bit. So there's a little bit towards the bottom of the first kind of, I don't know whether you'd call it the first section of that poem, I don't know. Here there's no language for officer or law, no color to call white. If snow fell, it'd call black. Please don't call us dead. Call us alive, someplace better. We say our own names when we pray. We go out for sweets and come back. I find that really,
oh my gosh,
it's beautiful. And then it goes on, that poem goes on to kind of imagine a place where these boys can just be. But there's also the question of who is, who is allowed to stay there and who is not. I think the reader is not allowed to stay there because we're not, we're alive. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's a very sad poem, but a very beautiful poem. And this whole collection, I mean, it's full of sadness and rage and trauma, but also it's funny and it's kind of hopeful, and it's celebratory and it's joyous. There's some really, it's really interesting because you found a quote that I didn't know from Danez Smith
from my cursory Googling.
Yeah, but it was an interesting quote about getting away from shame, or being able to talk about sex and sexuality without shame.
Yeah,
I think that is super interesting, and I think there's I do see that in here.
Could you tell me more about how hope is expressed in this collection?
Yeah. So I guess that's an interesting question.
Or why you find it hopeful?
I think I find it hopeful actually just because there is a sense of continuing to live in a lot of the poems. I mean, this first one, Summer Somewhere, is essentially about death, but that's also about freedom from pain and freedom from oppression and freedom from fear and so on, and also community and what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but being together. In others of the poems, it's really about living and being alive, and so a lot of the poems that deal with HIV are not. There's death in there as well. There's a line somewhere in here about, they didn't get me with a bullet, so they sent a boy instead, which I think is, I mean, that's another of those lines that made me stop, and I had to think about that for a long time.
Yeah.
But they're not, it's not a straightforward HIV equals death either. It's like, we live with this. This is also life, and it's exciting, and the sex that leads to the transmission of the disease is also exciting. And there's no sense that the poet would take back any of the experience that they've had, if that makes sense. And I think there's some hopefulness in that. It's not that, this is all terrible and awful and I would do away with all of it. It's that this is hard. Some of it is hard, and a lot of it is also wonderful and exciting and fun. Yeah.
And I don't like this question, but do you feel like the collection, the writer says to do anything or feel anything well, apart from live? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that in common with quite a lot of writing that I see online, I don't think it's for me. So there's no message to me. I'm allowed to share in it, in the sense that I can read the poems, but I don't feel like the poet is talking to me a lot of the time. So in that sense, no, I don't think it's not a crusade. No, I don't think it's a crusading collection. Not my impression anyway. There's a nice poem called Dinosaurs in the Hood, which you can find online. I'll try and find a link to Danez Smith reading that out loud, where it's a kind of, it starts with, let's make a movie called Dinosaurs in the Hood. Jurassic Park meets Friday meets The Pursuit of Happiness. And that's just, it's like, let's make a Jurassic Park movie that is just black people being black people. There aren't going to be any white people in this film. And I think that's the feeling that I get from the collection. It's like, I'm allowed to, you know, be there on the sidelines, but I'm not in here, and this isn't for me.
Right. So the quote that you mentioned that I found was Danez Smith saying, "We need to learn how to write about queer joy, queer stillness, and queer drama that is not attached to shame."
Yes, yes, I love that. I think that's a beautiful quote.
It's really beautiful.
I hadn't seen that before. Yeah, I like queer joy, queer stillness, and queer drama are 3 really interesting things as well.
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, that's part of it is that I think as soon as you write about queerness, there's sometimes an expectation that there's going to be an element of performance to it. And that's fine. Like queer drama there's space for that. But I think it's interesting to frame that in such a way that you don't have to only occupy queer drama. You know, there's space for you to also occupy stillness and joy. And I think that's a really important thing, to kind of hold that space of, you know, complexity, I guess.
Yes, like another friend of ours, Ben Walter, is that his name? And his research was
Walters,
or I never know if there's an S.
because of John Walter. That's the confusion. I think John Walter is John Walter and Ben Walters is Ben Walters.
Anyway, Not Television is his other moniker, is that the word?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Ben Walters, Not
Probably.
Television, his research area was queer play or queer fun.
Oh, queer fun. Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
And whether it's performative or whether it's you know, for you. And I suppose Danez is like kind of split it even further to talk about stillness and joy, which seem more personal.
Right. Yes. And I think that probably is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's very much a first-person perspective in the poems. You feel like there is a person. I feel like there is a person speaking to me about their life and their experience. I was just thinking, when you're talking about queer fun, I think that's one of the things that I find interesting about that, is that also needs to hold space for sadness and recognition of trauma. And I think it's the same here, that the one can't crowd out the other. Or if you ignore one or the other, you diminish something.
Yes. Yeah.
You're creating a 2-dimensional reality.
I haven't quite articulate. I haven't worked it out in my head, but it reminds me of something. I was talking to a filmmaker who's South Asian. Actually, I don't even know where he's based at the moment, but he makes seemingly incredibly silly, incredibly unslick works.
Right.
But he does that as a reaction to like the suffering and hardship around him.
Right.
And so often it's quite easy for me to go, oh, that's so silly or frothy or whatever. But it's worth thinking, why does it exist?
Yes.
Does it come from, whether or not it comes from like a personal reaction or a reaction to what's happening in society? Like, I think 2 weeks ago, I was really yearning for escapist literature.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to read Anne of Green Gables and pretend like life is simpler, just for like the time it takes me to read the book.
Right.
But,
when there's a place for that. When I was at school, I remember having the idea that escapism was a bad thing. So reading escapist literature was kind of a bad thing, or at best a guilty pleasure. Yes. But I was re-listening to an episode of the podcast The Illusionist recently, which Helen Zaltzman makes, about convalescent literature.
Oh.
Was a really interesting idea that I hadn't come across before I listened to the episode, and particularly about detective stories,
Yes.
you know, between the world wars, at a time when people in this country, in the UK, needed convalescence because, you know, collectively there had been this trauma and they needed something kind of gentle. But they mention Anne of Green Gables is one of the books that comes up. So I think Helen Zaltzman put out a call on her social media before making the episode saying, what do you read when you're feeling like you need looking after? And Anne of Green Gables was on that list.
Oh, that makes me feel so happy.
Yeah. But I think, and there was somebody on that episode that I think a psychologist, or not entirely sure what her role is. But anyway, talking about how, you know, sometimes when we are spending a lot of emotional energy on the world outside, what we need from literature is something that is not going to require us to do that. And that we can just kind of give ourselves to that safely, knowing that nothing bad is going to happen. That's really important too.
But that's the thing,
so rereading Anne of Green Gables, you
Yeah.
know that it's safe. You know the bits that are going to happen that are going to be sad or whatever. But yeah, there's a safety to that.
But I guess the pressure on us or on me is going, while I'm reading this book in however many hours, these many people are being tortured and murdered. And, you know, it's that sort of
Yes.
like, but, and we sort of talk about self-care so much, but, you know, I guess we need to keep self-examining and keep looking after ourselves, and keep sort of like, it's a constant thing, isn't it? We can't just go like, right now I know how to live, I know how to live now.
No, absolutely.
It changes every day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I find that difficult. I think I spend too much time looking inwards and not enough time looking outwards. And sometimes I feel like I don't
I feel that you spend a lot of time. What do you mean?
I mean that I spend a lot of time, you know, listening to convalescent literature on my headphones, for example, and avoiding reading stressful things online, or it feels like I do. And I try, I mean, yeah, that's partly because I don't always have the resources to deal with all of the emotions that people are putting out there. But yeah, you see, I mean, yeah, I always have this question of what is enough. We were talking about that briefly before we started, before we went live. And at the moment, I think that's very much in the air. How much is enough to do to dismantle white supremacy, for example? I mean, I feel like the easier answer and the kind of the lazy answer is to say nothing is ever going to be enough until it's done. So, you know,
so keep going.
But so keep going for sure. But it's, you know, it's easy to then go, well, then I'll do nothing, because nothing would be enough anyway. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, but obviously nothing. There's a greater chance of things shifting if enough people give a certain amount over a certain period of time.
Yes.
But I don't think we all need to. Oh, I'll just stop there. I'm just going to censor myself. But you know, I guess you kind of go, let's weigh up the probability of things and let's go with like the greater chance of good happening.
Right. Yes. I mean, that's a kind of that's a kind of which philosopher was it who came up with the idea of the greater good? Or what's that?
No, I didn't mean the greater good.
No, but what's that philosophy called that I'm trying to think of?
I don't know.
Hypnotism or something. I don't remember anyway. But yeah, because there's that way of looking at it, like trying to calculate what will have the most impact, or, you know, how best can I use my resources. But then if I don't know, then maybe it's important just to do something. Yes, Kevin says utilitarianism. I think that is what I was thinking of. Yeah, Locke, John Locke. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, but so I sometimes feel like it might also be about just continuing to do something, even if you don't know what the outcome will be. Although the danger of that, of course, is that you might end up producing an outcome which is the opposite of what you want, or of what is needed. I don't know. Again, with all these things, I feel like we have to just keep checking
The
in,
inquiry
keep
going.
assessing. Keep what?
Yeah. Keep the inquiry
Yes,
going.
exactly. Yes, yes.
But I suppose if you know that doing nothing is harmful, then doing something has a probability of making, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
probability wise,
Yes.
Kevin's
Maybe that's a
probably,
useful thing.
Kevin, who's like super clever, is probably going, Vera, your philosophy and your maths is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, Danez Smith, who we're talking about today, has been fundraising, for example, the last few days in Minneapolis, because one of the impacts of the response to the protests, the very violent response to the protests, has been that there's you can't buy what you need right now, because Minneapolis is just, it's parts of it I think are really locked down.
Yeah.
And shops are closed and so on. So they've been fundraising to take food and toys and things to people in Minneapolis. And that I think is, super interesting, because that's a very concrete thing that is clearly doing people good.
Yeah.
And I also find it interesting because it's not that effort is not going to destroy white supremacy. It's just a response to what is happening right now that needs to be done, which I think is, that's I think that's more how maybe I'm interested in thinking. Like, I don't know how to strategize for the far future, but maybe I can have a sense of what needs to be done, or something that needs to be done right now that I can do or can offer. I feel like we're in territory that I am very uncomfortable in. That's
all right. I am too. But I'm also aware that we should move on, and maybe we can continue this discussion into like the question section. So basically, you can ask us, dear listeners, dear viewers, anything you want, either about ourselves, or about what